Elizabeth Chappell, a lifelong entrepreneur who finally found my niche. After years of new ideas and jumping from business to business, I figured out how to turn a craft into a successful career. In 2016, I started a monthly subscription box for quilters. That little startup has grown into a thriving, multiple six-figure business that I am so proud of. As a published author, designer of fabrics and patterns being sold throughout the world, my favorite thing to do is to teach others how to grow a career of their dreams. Each week, you'll hear from me or from other guests who are creative entrepreneurs, so you can learn exactly what to do and what not to do to grow a career that's more rewarding and successful than you ever thought possible. If you're ready to turn your craft into a career that you love, I am so excited you're here. Welcome to the Craft to Career podcast. Jaycee, thank you so much for being here on the podcast. For our listeners, can you just do a little brief introduction of who you are and what you do in this creative space?
Yeah, I'm Jaycee, otherwise known as stay-at-home artist. I'm an embroidery artist and a digital content creator, as well as digital PDF maker, all of the above, but mostly just embroidery. And I love teaching people how to do what I do from home.
That's awesome. So how did you come up with the name Stay-at-Home Artist?
Yeah, well, I actually started my business in 2020, right after I had my first baby, and I was staying home and looking for a creative outlet, and I had just barely tapped my feet into the waters of embroidery. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see if some of my friends want to buy some of my pieces because this is fun. And so I was like, okay, I'll make a business page on Instagram because I have a lot of background in like content creation for businesses. And I was like, I know how to set this up. So I'll just, do this, see if some of my friends and family want to do it. And I needed to come up with a name, and it just randomly came to me. I was like, well, I'm an artist and I'm a mom, so just going to make this work and see how it works out. And now we're here.
Nice. Okay. So can you say like who you worked for before? I'm super intrigued what company you did.
Yeah. So my dad actually owns a company. It's called Center Collision. So they fix cars, like all kinds of things on cars. And he started the business when I was younger. And so all of my family, he's kind of worked there throughout the years. And so he sent me to actually a couple years of training for marketing. And so I was able to do that for his business up until I got married and had kids. And then it's just helped me a ton in my own business. But yeah, I handled all of their social media, marketing through email, some PR work as well, which I didn't really like because I'm like an introvert, so I love to just have my own space, and I don't love to go in front of people all the time. So that's why I love that I can do what I do from home.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it helped me a ton.
I think there's something with like embroidery, I don't know, the crafts where you kind of do your own thing, where it kind of attracts the introvert type, where we kind of just like to do our own thing. So
right.
I get that. So, okay, you started embroidery around 2020.
Yes.
How did you, because a lot of people have imposter syndrome or like, I'm not qualified enough yet. So you started with, okay, maybe my friends want to buy this, but how did you make the leap? Because I mean, looking at your website, you offer quite a few things, and we'll talk about the different things that you offer, but like, did you have imposter syndrome? Do you still struggle with it? How did you get that courage to like, I'm just going to do this thing,
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was something that I would overcome, like looking at where I started from where I'm at now. Like I still have a lot of goals that I'm trying to reach, but I thought I would have overcome a lot of the imposter syndrome by now, but it's still a very prominent enemy in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, like what has jumped me to finding more success in my business was overcoming that, because like for me myself, I I love embroidery, but I'm a self-taught artist. And so I don't have any formal training. All I know is from what my mom taught me and from YouTube videos and free things because I hated like reading through patterns. And so anything I could get my hands on just as quickly as possible, or, looking at something super quick and trying it myself. And so I felt a ton of imposter syndrome when I started growing, following on my accounts because I was like, well, I don't feel qualified to like show people how to do this because I don't even know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so, but like, I've had a lot of conversations with my husband, who's been the backbone of my business, and he's helped me realize like, even if you're not formally trained, you still have something to bring to the table. You still have things to offer, because you're your own person. And regardless of what your background is, people want to learn from you. And so taking that to heart has really been the biggest lesson for me in, becoming an entrepreneur and running my own business, is just learning that any experience is experience and people just want to learn. They don't really care where you come from or how much they just want to know if they can try it themselves. And you know just making things as beginner friendly as possible has been, and it's been helpful for me too, because coming from someone who doesn't have background in what I do and didn't really read patterns, so I just make everything as beginner friendly as possible and think of myself back then like, okay, I didn't even know needle sizes, or I didn't realize you could split embroidery threads. So just making it as simple as possible has really helped me find the most success in that.
So, changing gears a little bit, can you share with our listeners what different products you offer as an embroiderer?
Yeah. So, a lot of what I do is creating samplers. So, just going back to like what I was saying, making it as beginner friendly as possible. So, right now, what I'm working on a lot of is my floral bouquet samplers. So, um, I'm just showing people like how to recreate flowers with embroidery. So I have about 6 to 8 flowers on one design that I show people how to do. And then my most basic samplers are just like the basic embroidery stitches, like a back stitch, a fly stitch, walking someone through who has never heard of embroidery to be familiar with most stitching methods. And then I also do monthly patterns. So like every month I'll create a new design. And that's fun. It just helps me like stay on top of my creative juices.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also do bouquet recreations from people's weddings. So I'll put together a kit for someone who wants to recreate what their bouquet looked like in an embroidery piece. I do a lot of those. Those are really fun. I love working with brides, and just they are just so excited. And I've had so many fun ones.
Yeah, I saw that on your website. I didn't realize it was like a bridal thing. That's a really cool
Yeah.
memory. So I am curious how you've grown your following on Instagram. Are there certain reels, or when and how has your growth come?
Yeah, it really came when I first started putting out my stitch samplers, like showing people how to do simple things within like a 30 to 60-second reel, and just making it as simple as possible for someone starting. And it's funny because it was like that was the last thing I wanted to do, because like I told you, I'm not like professionally trained or anything. So I was like, I can't be the one teaching people how to start this because I don't know exactly what I'm doing or exactly what to do. But overcoming that has really what's led me to the most success in my business. And just understanding that I still have things to bring to the table, even if I'm not a professional. So I've just been focusing on releasing more and more of those. Like I told you a little bit about what I'm doing with my bouquet samplers right now. So I'm just showing people how to stitch specific flowers. Like my daughter and I went for a walk and we found a really pretty flower and I sketched it up on my iPad and put it on my neck sampler. And that reel is like doing super well right now. I just posted it less than a week ago and it's at like 100,000 views, which is crazy. Just like thinking of where I started with like maybe 50 followers just from my family and friends and um, growing into what it is now. And I just feel super, super grateful because I'm really just sharing things that I like. And um, like someone told me when I started my account, I still talk to her all the time, but um, I asked her like, how do you connect with people? How do you grow your audience and um, make it a community? And she said, honestly, like I make things that I like to make. I don't make things that I think other people are going to like because I want to grow my account. She said, like the most success I found is just from being so excited about making what I like to make and, you know, showing my creativity in those ways. And that is how I grew a community of people who also love that because I find that if you are doing and sharing what you love to do, people are eventually going to follow you and they're going to be excited for you. And that's the best way to go about it. And has helped me be more authentic is to not make things because I think it's going to be something that people will like, but you know, making things that I liked and that genuinely make me happy and fulfilled too. And I think that's why I've been able to do this for as long as I have because I never run out of ideas because there's always something I'm excited or um, happy to share about. And eventually people are excited about it too. Some things that I post and it doesn't go anywhere, or some items I have in my shop don't sell at all, and I thought they would. But
Mm-hmm.
my main goal is fulfilled is just sharing things that I love and having fun and the joy of creativity.
Which, okay, there's so much gold in what you said right there, which I love because, oh, I mean, so often I will hear people say, what is selling well? Because
Yeah,
that's what I want to sell. And I'm
right,
like, oh, no, 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 no.
right. And it's so
Because
hard.
you're always chasing,
Yeah.
and you're looking and it doesn't come from within, and it's like, and you're like, you were saying when you create, people will eventually like it. I feel like people who are interested in the same thing eventually find you. They're like,
Yes.
oh no, I like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what it is. And it's hard to like have a creative business and come in with like a business mindset because um like I do know a little bit about business because of my dad and growing his business and I know like you have to there's like math equations you can do basically to help you grow your sales, but with a creative business it's easier to get burnt out if you're only constantly doing what other people want you to do because it's like, well, why did I get into this in the first place? And
Yep.
so that's been the most important thing for me is to constantly being able to do things that I like to do as well and not pushing things that maybe are doing well but I hate doing. There's
Yes.
just things that you have to learn the hard way sometimes, so it's
Isn't
hard,
that the truth? I know. I'm like, no, I don't want to learn this the hard way.
yeah.
No.
Right.
So what I'm curious, what things do you say no to that what don't you like to do? I just, to me it seems like, oh, floral embroidery, but there's clearly things that you've said no to. So what would those look like? Unless it's a certain company and you don't want to be
No.
like, I didn't want to work with them.
No, it's not anything like that. It's usually just things like so I started my business mostly just doing commission work from like family and friends and then eventually some people I didn't know when I like posted my stuff on Etsy. And so I would just like stitch whatever people wanted me to stitch. But I didn't have like a ton of enjoyment in that because I wasn't always I didn't feel like I was like filling my creative boxes as much as I needed to because I mean, deep down, I am a people pleaser and I'm constantly recovering from being a people pleaser. So it's just a mantra I have to repeat myself is that filling um, my creative boxes is just as important as making sales or, keeping up with my business. And so I've done a lot less of commission work. Just because it doesn't allow me to expand in my creative space as much as I want to. And that as well as the biggest thing was really just that it took so much time and it's really hard to make it worth how much it how much time it takes
Yep.
me because people don't understand. I mean, I can spend 50 plus hours on a 6-inch hoop and it's just one of those things that people don't get. So I'm like, it's okay. Like, I'm not offended that you don't want to pay X amount of
Right,
money,
right.
but it's like, at the same time, I'm still
Don't
trying
want to do
to, yeah, right.
it.
Like, I've still got
Yeah.
bills to pay too. So,
Yep, exactly. Well, yes, I mean, you are speaking so much to the quilting and dare I say any kind of artistic community. Like when you're doing something for commission, unless they approach you and you say it's going to cost X amount of money and up
right.
front, and they're like, okay, cool, But even then, let's say you were to do these projects for other people and they paid you. I mean, at some point there is a price where it becomes like, okay, yeah, that's appealing, like
Yeah.
$1 million. But even then, that creative fire inside of us, it's not allowing that to grow. And so for
Right.
you to like own it and now to approach your audience and say, this is what I offer. I can do the custom wedding floral bouquets. And then when they come to you with their commission, it's already within your realm of this excites me. I love this.
Yes.
Yeah, and the time thing too. Oh, I mean, the more I'm in business, the more I realize I want to say no to everything
Right.
unless it's from my own heart and brain.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. It's so
yeah.
hard to say no to things. And I still struggle with that because I'm like, well, I really do want to make that, but I have to think from like a business standpoint sometimes too. But it is, it is just so hard to say no to people. And, you
I
know,
know. But every time, I try to remind myself every time I say yes to something, I'm saying no to something else. So,
yes.
and generally it's saying no to me. I'll
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll do that for you. And then I can't do what I want to do, which ultimately does hurt the customer too. So
Yes.
anyhow, yeah, big round circle. So I love, okay, for my listeners, they're probably aware of this. I did a monthly subscription box when I first started. That's how I started my business.
Oh,
And
really?
then, yeah, over time I phased it out because, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, but I was getting up to like, I don't know, 300 boxes a month. And that was a lot. It's a lot of
Yeah.
packing and inventory. And then I had to buy it. And if I didn't sell it, then I ate the cost.
Yeah.
And every extra dollar earned was more work for me. Like I had to pack another box.
Yeah.
So I shifted to purely digital. Um, I'm curious your thoughts on that. Are you loving, I mean, but I don't know, because I've thought about embroidery too. At some point, you will have like the starter kit or whatever. I mean, I guess they could buy it on Amazon, but it might be nice for you to kind of curate that and create
Yeah.
their experience.
Right. No, it's hard to figure out. Like, I've even been at a point where I'm like, okay, do I want to continue doing this? Because I know it's not like my best seller, my monthly subscriptions, but it's just something that keeps my creative juices flowing. So I'm like, personally, I want to keep doing it, but it is hard. Like you said, like it's hard to know how much inventory to take in or, how much to buy. And then there's so much time packing. And so I've just like had to learn how to price things at a point where it's worth my time to package and order everything. And, as well as like a lot of what I do now is just pre-orders because I can't afford to like order everything and then have it not
Not sell it.
sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
so and that's why like I love doing the custom bouquet kits for people because they come to me asking for a commission. And like you said, like it's in the realm of what I love to do. And I can work with them one on one to put together a kit. And then all of the content that I'm creating is geared toward helping them be successful in putting those together. So, like with my floral bouquet
Oh,
samplers, like a lot of flowers are similar to flowers that they have in their bouquets. So they know, like, because when I put the kit together, I'm just sketching out drawings like, okay, do this stitch here, do this here. This is what I suggest, but I'm not
I
actually
didn't know
stitching it.
that.
Yeah. So it's like a lot of people are
Okay.
like, well, I don't know like how to translate that from the file to fabric. And so giving people examples of what to do is
I
really,
like that.
yeah. And it's fun because I'm like, okay, I can do this. Like, I can show you what I like to do. And then you can translate that into however you want to do that for yourself.
Yeah, which okay, I'm curious. Well, I've seen you share a little bit on social media with your iPad. Like, here's how I create my sketch. Have you ever thought of like offering a little, I don't know, mini course or something where you teach people how to make their own templates?
Yeah, yes, I really need to. I have like a
You have thought of
couple,
it?
yeah, I have a couple YouTube tutorials up showing people how to do it, but I really need to start a course or something like that. But it's honestly like it's not anything crazy hard.
My biggest thing, I went to like a quilt market festival and there was a woman there who had made this little bag. And I was like, oh my gosh, do you have a pattern for that? She's like, oh no, I couldn't sell a pattern. It's too easy. And I felt like an idiot because I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to make that. Like, please
Yeah,
hold my hand and help me with that. The best teachers, the best like content that you can share with others are the things that feel so easy to you that you're like, no, sorry, no way, no one would want that. It's so easy. Like you can figure it out. They cannot. Like they
yeah.
really want someone to hold their hand. And my goodness, if they're asking, then there's a demand for it. And I know they're asking because I've seen your Instagram account. Can you tell I'm getting like fired up and excited about this? I'm like, do it, do
No,
it.
thank you. That's such good feedback, and that's really good to know. My husband's constantly telling me the same thing. Like, no, like you have so much to offer, but I'm like, no, this is literally so simple that people are going to, laugh at me. Like, one of my most popular videos that got up to 1 million views was a stitch that I almost didn't post about because I was like, no, this is the dumbest thing to post. Like, everyone knows how to do this if they know embroidery. And there were so many people that were like, no, thank you. I didn't know how to do this. But, so I'm glad that you say that because I need to take my own advice. And, it's just a humbling thing to remember that everyone is a beginner at some point and people just need someone to lead them along. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm even thinking like if I were to create, I know how to sketch things on my iPad. I know how to bring it into like Adobe. But then I'd be like, what the heck do I print it on? Like what kind of paper? How does that step look?
Yeah.
Like so gathering and asking your audience all the questions like what would you want to learn? And I'm curious, this reel, what was the stitch that you showed that went viral?
Yeah, it was a back stitch and a
Mm-hmm.
woven wagon wheel. So like the little rows.
Hmm.
Yeah, but one
Yeah.
of them got up to 10 million views and the other one was at like 2
10
million.
million.
Yeah, I was like, "What? This is great." I remember like showing my
Whoa.
husband like cuz at that point, I think it was on TikTok. My account was at like 1,000 followers and I was not going anywhere and I was like, "You know what? I'm just going to post these videos and hope it goes to someone." And then I opened my app one day and there's like hundreds of people and I was like, oh my gosh, I was so stressed out. I was like, I don't know what to do with all these people. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's just, it is what it is. It's like, and that's really how so many things have been for me is things that I am constantly like going back and forth with myself with. And then I am just like, okay, I'll just do it. That's how I was with my floral sampler, and it's been my bestseller right now because I was like, well, I'm not a floral artist. I'm just an embroidery artist, and there's other embroidery artists that are way better at floral designs, and so I feel like I am stepping on their toes, or I'm dipping into something that I don't know how to do. But getting over that part of myself and allowing myself to just stir in that creative pot and allow whatever to come out is it's been amazing because it's been such a great seller for me. And it's just constantly like reminding myself, like, you don't have to be the best at what you do. And it's, it's just one of those things that I don't even know if I'm making sense right now, but just
Yes,
getting
you
over
are.
yourself is the hardest part of, of being in business and content creating.
Well, and this idea of like, it's interesting that you say there's so many other embroidery artists that do this better than me. You're the only embroidery artist I know who does this.
Oh,
And
that's
I
funny.
see this, yeah, I see this with like quilters, any industry that you go to, you are following and saturated in that world. I am not.
That's
And
so
like, if
true.
I were to ask you, do you know any quilt pattern designers? I am curious. Do you like, do you know any quilt pattern designers?
Okay, I know one because she was the one that got me into sewing. I think it's Susie Quilts.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah. I
Yes.
that was the first pattern I ever followed. I called my mom through the whole thing, and that was what got me into sewing, like literally in just December. But yeah, her and you are the only ones that I know.
Which is laughable to me
Really?
because in our industry, you will hear people like, it's so oversaturated. There's so many designers. Oh my gosh. No, there can't be, and so it is what you are surrounding yourself with.
Yeah,
And so just to my listener, like for the listener of the podcast, I guarantee everyone out there is feeling the same thing of like, but look at them. They're doing it and they're better than me.
so
You're
true.
going to find an audience of people. Like if I were to walk down my street or go to the grocery store and be like, hey, do you know an embroidery artist? I'd be lucky to get anyone who says yes. So like
Yeah,
there's so many untapped people out there that don't know any embroidery artists at all. And so if they can find you, you're their introduction and or quilter or whatever it may be. And then I also want to talk about the growing pains because you were like, I opened my app one day and there were all these people. I, we never talk about in business like the growing pains. It's always like, I want to get bigger. I want to get bigger. And then all of a sudden when it floods in, it's like, oh, I am not ready for this.
yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
how did you deal with that? Like, cause it can really be overwhelming and like, oh, turn it off.
Yeah, no, it was overwhelming. And I don't know. I feel like I'm constantly going through some weird growing pains because I don't know, going viral isn't always what it's cracked up to be. Like, to be honest, like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had like crazy, crazy viral videos, but some of them that have blown up bring in very strange people. And so I've just had to
Mm-hmm.
grow thicker skin and, realize that people don't actually care about what they're saying sometimes. But
Yeah.
especially with like having an influx of orders, that can be hard. And really, like what I was telling you before, like what had grown my account to start with was the beginner stitch samplers, like showing people here's a back stitch, here's a fly stitch, just to the first person who doesn't know anything about embroidery. And I was just making those. I didn't even plan to like release them as like an item in my shop. I just had it as an example and to make videos with. And then they started blowing up. That's what had started getting thousands and even some in the millions of views. And people were like, where can I buy this? Where can I buy this? And so it was such a last minute thing that I put together on my
Mm.
website. And so there was just a lot of like really last minute things. I feel like I'm just constantly flying by the seat of my pants. Like a lot of people I talk to are like, I have my whole year planned out and I really wish I was that kind of person, but I'm not. Like I just constantly
Oh,
like
me
one week to the
neither.
next, like, I'm a
Yes.
busy mom. My husband works full time,
Uh,
like that's just the reality of it for me. And I just make it
yes.
work. So, that's just how things have been for me. So I've just had to adjust and, adjust. I don't know if that like that's not the best way to answer that question, but
No, it
there's
is. And
just
I'm dying laughing because I literally was just on vacation and I wrote notes. I'm going to record a podcast on this topic of like, I had a panic attack, not legit, but like
yeah,
what am I doing? Like I need a
Right.
plan. I need a plan for the year. And my husband's like, why? What are you? And
Yeah.
I mean, it was legit like because everyone else does. And that's what they're
Right.
telling me I need to do, and like,
No, that's
says
comforting though.
who? So,
Yeah, you
and my
really
husband's also my biggest supporter. And like, you get to do whatever you want. This is your business. I'm like, oh, what?
absolutely. No, there's so many expectations on that we put on ourselves, especially like I don't know, when I like started my page and I looked at people who had a larger following or larger businesses than I do, I was always like, "Oh, I'm sure these people are making so much money or they have like I just had all these expectations and now that
Mm-hmm.
I'm in that, row of people that I looked at before when I started, it's just funny that I not a
Mm-hmm.
lot is different. Like
Yep.
I'm just a last minute person and I get done what I need to get done, but I don't always have a plan and that's just something that's okay with me. I just have to roll with it.
Well, and I'm curious because I feel like with that whole idea of like everyone was asking for that product, like where can I buy this? And you're like, okay, I guess I'll make the product. So in my experience, because I do the same thing,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a whole episode. I definitely have ADHD, and I'm like, oh, cool, like let's do that. And so then I sell the product, and I'm like, oh, I guess I better figure out how to like do this now. And then I'll get a few customers who are like, it feels like that was put together really quickly, or things where I'm like, oh, well, they're not wrong. And
Yeah.
so do you get some of that? Like,
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
and I'm
okay.
glad you asked because that I needed to get into that. There have been like some emails I've gotten from people that have been very good feedback, but it was really hard for me to take in. And like, I
Mm-hmm.
was in tears, like telling my husband, like, I can't do this. Like, see,
Yep.
this is exactly what I was talking about. And he's just, constantly reminding me, like, it's okay. Like, do you think everyone has it right all the time? Like, you know what I mean? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all you have to do is just readjust and make things better. And so like for example, when I had started those samplers, there were some people that were like, these videos are way too fast. Like I can't even understand what you're doing. And so and I had a lot of feedback like that. And so what I had to do was do a lot of research on YouTube. And, I eventually invested in a nicer camera and some recording equipment. And so now what I can do is make it a lot simpler and walk people through like a really long YouTube video and, just things like that. So I've had to make adjustments for a lot of things and just learn to not be so offended when people are saying things like that because, like it's my business, so it's my baby. But at the same time, like those are the things that will help me grow. And even if they're
Mm-hmm.
hard, you got to get through it one way or another. Like, what else am I going to do? Quit just because someone says I'm not doing a good job? Like, all it means is that I need to make
Right.
some adjustments, and that's okay. So,
Exactly.
you know,
I mean, honestly, it is invaluable, that feedback, and it sucks to hear it. And
right?
sometimes I'll hear people like, everybody loved my course, everyone loved my pattern. I'm like, either you didn't get everybody's feedback
Yes,
or they're not being honest with you because
absolutely.
everything can get better. And if you do not want to just get feedback that's all positive. Like, I
No,
know that sounds like you're shooting yourself in the foot, but you've got to hear the negative stuff.
it's so
And
true.
because we want to make the best product possible. Like, we want to become obsessed with it. And also, however, I mean, I good for you for just jumping in and doing the thing because oftentimes I see people who are like, no, I can't do it because it's not good enough yet. And
Yeah,
usually there's other people who are judgy themselves. They judge other people like, oh, that sucks. And then they're afraid to go out and do it because they're like, well, everyone's going to judge it. I'm like, well, maybe, you know,
it's
give a little
hard.
bit of grace.
No, it's hard. I think the hardest lesson I've learned is that you have to be okay to like have a cringe phase. Like you have to be
Mm-hmm.
okay with being a beginner at some point. And looking
Yep.
back at like my first reels or my first tutorials, even my first pattern, it makes me want to like tear my eyes out. Like they are so bad, but you have to start somewhere. You can't expect yourself to be perfect. And I've had a couple of friends reach out to me and ask like, how can I like grow as an artist or grow my business. And I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, you just have to be okay with being a beginner, being cringy and not being the best and putting it out there anyway. And, you know,
Yep.
there's going to be people laughing, but at the same time, who cares? Like, they're not doing that. You know, most of the time, people
Mm-hmm.
that are criticizing you are the people that are too afraid to put themselves out there in the first place. And so I just have
Absolutely.
realized, like, you know what? That's all right. You know, like, I'm still
Yep.
putting myself out there. And at the end of the day, that's a win for me because I am a people pleaser. I have imposter syndrome, you know, so I'm just working through those things and releasing the content that I have or the patterns and designs that I have. You know, just doing that is overcoming those things for me. And that's, you know, that's a win for me. So if it's not good enough for you, that's okay.
Yes. So do you get nervous when you post a reel? And I'm asking because I just posted one today that I was like, I thought it was hilarious last night. And then this morning I was like, oh gosh, maybe this was stupid, you know? And I'm like, whatever, just do it. Just post the thing. And it's not
Yeah.
doing as well as I thought it would, you know? And I'm like, darn it. And I have that initial like, well, maybe just delete it. I'm like, no, don't do that, Elizabeth. Do not delete it. You just leave it there, you know? So do you ever go through
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh yeah. Like every day. It's honestly every day. I never know how they're gonna do, to be honest. Like most of the videos that I think are gonna do well don't do well. And then the videos
Yep.
I don't think are gonna do well are the ones that do well. And so it's just so hard to know. Like honestly, like the ones
Hmm.
that I'm always like, "Oh, I don't know if I should post this. They're really me like showing my true self or, you know, my sense of humor. And they like some of them do really well and some of them don't, and I feel stupid, but it's like
Same. I know. And I'm like, just sit with it. Just sit with
you just have to
that.
sit with it, really, and just leaving it out there because you never know who's going to run into you because of something you put out there. It's just, it's one of those things that's like you just have to be okay with. Just like you
Hmm.
said, just sit with it and be okay with it, and it's going to be
Cringe
fine.
face.
Yeah.
I love that you said you've got to just have your cringe face.
It's so true. You can
Uh,
scroll all the way down my profile and you will see what I'm talking about. It's far down there now, thank goodness.
I love it. So, okay, what other platforms do you use besides Instagram? You mentioned YouTube as well.
Yeah, so I use YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook, and then I do email, some email marketing. But
What
yeah,
platform, what email marketing host do you use?
I just use it through my Shopify.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just been the simplest way because it links to all the products in my shop. And I'm not like great with my email marketing as much as I should be. Because most of my, like, if I'm not posting content on my pages, then I'm not getting sales. So it's really what I try to
Mm,
focus on is just always having something up every 1 or 2 days and
hmm.
showing what I'm working on or something I'm excited about. Um, and then,
Which I'll admit I'm not on TikTok really ever.
oh
Okay, not
yeah.
ever, but not often. So is your following bigger on TikTok or Instagram?
Yeah, it's interesting. It is a little bit bigger on TikTok. I think I'm at like 260,000 followers. And
Hmm.
then my Instagram is less than that. But my Instagram seems to have more sales conversion than my TikTok does. And I don't know. Yeah,
Interesting.
I don't know why that is. I feel like people just follow pages a lot faster on TikTok because they're not like connected. Most of them are not connected to their personal pages, and so they don't really care what they're following. And so on Instagram,
Uh-huh.
people it's connected to their personal page, and they tend to be on there more. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just what I've noticed. And my views on TikTok are so far and few in between. I mean, some videos will get thousands to millions of views, and some of them, like I posted a reel or a video on TikTok a couple days ago, and it's only got like a couple of thousand views, which is crazy because
Hmm.
how much of my audience is not seeing my videos.
Yep.
And you know, it's one of those things. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna put it out there anyway.
Yep. Yep. And you never know. Like
Yeah,
that one that went viral, 10 million views. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. That's like, it makes me salivate. I'm like, ooh,
No,
what I wouldn't give for that, you know?
and I still can't believe it either. I mean, it's just so weird that the things that people end up connecting the most with are things that I almost didn't post.
Yeah, that's crazy. Interesting. So I'm curious, what advice would you give for someone who's out there and thinking, I would love to start a creative business.
Um, Man, honestly, there's so many things that come to mind, but I think the biggest piece of advice I could give someone is to stop being afraid to take themselves seriously. That's something that I have learned and I'm still learning, um, is that you have, the creativeness that you admire in other people is the same creativity that lies within yourself. And realizing that and harnessing that power, taking that and showing other people what you have to offer is the best thing you can do. And just overcoming yourself, and really just putting it out there anyway, and not being afraid to, you know, be okay with things being cringy or not as good as you want them to be. Yeah, I mean, I find so many ideas that come across my mind, and the censor part of my brain is like, well, I'm not qualified to share this because XYZ, or I'm not good at this. But just allowing myself to actually take those ideas seriously and see where they lead me, that's been where I have found the most success. And I feel like I'm like repeating myself, but it's really the best advice I could give someone, because there's so many ideas that we all have that we feel like we're too scared to share because it's not good enough or we don't have enough experience. But really, like, that creative power that we admire in other people, we have it within ourselves too. It's just allowing yourself to take it seriously and see where you'll go. That's really what's holding you back, is yourself. And at the end of the day, that is the hardest person to overcome, is yourself. But learning to do that is something I'm still learning how to do. So I'm definitely taking my own advice. I'm not the best person to ask that question to, but that's something I'm still learning, and that's the best advice that I could give, really.
Which is so interesting because I generally find like the things that I speak on to others that I feel passionately about, I'm really speaking to myself,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right?
and my husband will even be like, what did your podcast, Elizabeth, have to say about this? I'm like, I know.
That's so cute. I love that.
But it's true. Like the only thing getting in our way is us, you know? And so if we
Absolutely.
can get out of our own way and allow those thoughts and things in our minds, that we've got a lot, we're pretty cool people.
Yeah.
We've got some cool creative stuff coming out of our brains. So, go share it with the world and let the chips fall where they may, because it's usually a pretty good result.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So for our listeners who want to find you, where is the best place for them to find you?
Anywhere. I'm stay-at-home artist on all social media platforms, and then my website is stayathomeartistshop.com. I did think about that for a second. Yeah, but you can find me anywhere. Stay-at-home artist.
Awesome. And we'll have links in the show notes as well. But for sure, check out, I'm on Instagram, so I'm telling our listeners, be sure to check out your Instagram, but it could be TikTok, wherever. But check it out, because you have some really beautiful stuff. So thank you so much for being here, being a guest on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm so honored that you reached out. I've listened to your podcast before, so I was super excited when you sent me a message. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah. Well, and I was flattered too when you were like, oh yeah, I've listened to your podcast before. I'm like, oh my gosh. I read it to my husband. I'm like, in the wild, she legit listened to my podcast. So thank you.
No, of course. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It was fun to chat with you.
Jaycee, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. I love seeing creatives in all different fields and genres, if you will, who are just tapping into something that they love, that lights them up, and they're finding success doing it. So Jaycee Afuvai, thank you so much for being a guest here on the Craft Your Career podcast. For you listeners, if you are enjoying the podcast, my ask of you is that you leave a review for the podcast. Thank you so much. I've been seeing some new reviews trickle in, and it means the world to me. So if you can take just a second on Apple Podcasts, you just scroll down to where it says ratings and reviews. says tap to rate, and you can tap however many stars you want to give that. And under that, it says write a review, and you can write your thoughts about the podcast. In Spotify, you can also leave a review and share however many stars you think the podcast deserves. So thank you so much for being here, for listening to the things that are shared on the podcast. I hope that you are finding value for your business. And again, Jaycee, thank you so much. Love seeing what you're doing. And thank you for taking time out to be here and to share your business and your success with the listeners. I'll see you next week right here on the Craft to Career podcast.